I was really looking forward to 47 Meters Down Uncaged because 47 Meters Down, the first film, is one of the scariest films I've ever seen. I loved the experience. And Uncaged is not bad. I'd say it's not as good. And there are a few specific reasons why I feel that way. But in general, I still really liked it. This was released in 2019. It's directed by Johannes, written by Roberts and Ernest Riera. And we have a cast including Sophie Nélisse, Corinne Foxx, Brianne Tju, Sistine, Stallone, and various others. The performances are really good. The characters are not all likable. Some of them are okay. Some of them, when we're introduced to them, don't have the best or the kindest attitudes. And this was something I thought was quite different because with the first film, I don't want to give away too much about the first film, but the characters there were absolutely likable, no issues whatsoever. Whereas I wasn't sure if I'd have such a strong emotional connection with the characters here because some of them are not the most likable. And that definitely seemed to be the case. I wasn't as concerned about their well-being as I was with the characters in the first film, but I didn't dislike them. It just wasn't the same emotional connection. The narrative is a little different to the first film because the characters are somewhere where they're probably not meant to be. Certainly not without telling anybody, because these four young girls visit this secret lagoon. Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And there's a sunken Mayan city, and they dive down to it. And my first thought was, well, what's the threat going to be? What is it that's going to stop them from escaping or from being able to go back to the surface of the water? And I won't say what happens. I won't give it away just in case you have the same question. But something happens that does, of course, mean they're in a lot of danger very quickly and they have to try and get out. And obviously we have some sharks, as we did with the first film. And it took maybe 20 minutes. It was a lot slower to get to the narrative, or the main part of the narrative, than it was in the first film, but it took about 20 minutes for any real danger to happen. But once it did, as soon as they went into the sunken city, immediately I felt sick, because I hate water. I absolutely don't want to be in it. And that was enough for me to start to feel really uneasy. And then I'd say maybe within 10 minutes, I could feel their panic. I was hunched over. I was trying to curl within myself because the anxiety was so strong. So it didn't take too long for the events to become really scary. A little slower than the first film, but we definitely got there within a decent amount of time. And then we spend the rest of the film in a lot of danger, trying to escape. And of course, I'm not going to say too much about that. I will talk about the ending towards the end with a spoiler warning because I have a few thoughts there. But I won't say anything else just now about the specifics of the narrative. In terms of it being scary, absolutely. If, like me, you hate water and just the thought of being stuck in water makes you feel really unwell, I think you'll find it to be quite terrifying. A few things that I didn't love. I feel like the camera work was a lot choppier than it was in the first film. A lot of it was very uneasy. It was very back and forth, and I don't know if they were trying to go for this almost motion sickness aspect with constantly being thrown around. If that's their argument for what they were trying to do, I could see that. But I just felt like I was constantly being thrown around to the point where it was uncomfortable. I was constantly trying to have to reassess what I was looking at or which character I was looking at. So the camera work definitely wasn't as good as it was in the first film. But that being said, it was phenomenal in the first film. I feel like maybe a lot of that as well is because they had a lot more to show. Because we're obviously in a sunken Mayan city, there's a lot more to look at. Whereas with the first film, it was just water and sharks. Whereas here we have a lot more to look at. There are several more characters. So maybe they were trying to, well, show us that there was more to look at. But I don't think the right approach was taken, at least from my perspective, at least with what I found to be comfortable viewing. But other than that, and some of the characters not being the most likable, I still thought it was a really strong experience, still scary enough that I felt really unwell through most of it, and I really enjoyed the experience, and I had a lot of fun with it. If you liked the first film, I think you'll really enjoy this one. It's not as strong, but it's still really great. and it's definitely one that I thoroughly enjoyed. And I don't really watch horror films multiple times because usually with the type of horror films that I love, they're a lot more psychological, twisty and turny, and a lot of the horror comes from the element of surprise. But with this kind of film, I think I could watch this again and again and have such a strong physical response to the horror that it would never get old. And that's pretty great. So definitely recommend it if you liked the first film. If you didn't like the first film, it might still be worth watching this if you're interested, because it does have a different feel to it. On the one hand, it's a worthy sequel. On the other, it does feel quite different. So I think it could be one that you'd enjoy even if you didn't love the first film. But obviously, if you're not interested in water-based horror and shark-based horror, then yeah, I'd say it's probably not worth watching, because they're definitely the core elements here. And I will now talk about the ending. So this is a big spoiler for something that happens, well, everything that happens right at the end, because I have something to praise and something to point out that I didn't really like. I was going to say criticize there. I don't know if I'm criticizing it or if it's just down to personal preference. Maybe a bit of both. So right at the very end, I was worried that they were going to go down the same route as the ending of the first film. And I won't say what that is, just in case you haven't seen the first film. But I will say the ending is different. They didn't just rehash the same concept. And I was really pleased about that, because for a moment, when we had some distorted sound, I did think they're about to do the exact same thing. And they didn't, so I was really pleased with that. However, the ending was unrealistically dramatic. Now, if somebody wants to tell me that actually in real life this could play out the way it did at the end, then I'll believe you, because I have no idea. But from my perspective, it just seemed a little too over the top and a little too unrealistic, and too many characters were trying to be heroes, and I didn't love it. So I didn't hate it, and I'm glad they didn't just go down the same route as they did with the first film. I loved the ending in the first film, but obviously repeating it would get a little old. But I didn't love the characters' actions. I just don't think it was very believable. It was a little too over the top, and honestly, I don't think it was necessary. So didn't love the ending, but also there are some positives there. But ultimately, 47 Meters Down, Uncaged, is still a really, really brilliant film. Not as strong as the first film, but I think I'm confident in saying that I still loved it.